Error State presents Biological Slop. The problem with the morning sun was that it was buffering. Elara sat in the classroom and watched the light struggle to render through the window. It wasn't a real window, of course. Glass was structurally inefficient and prone to thermal leaks. It was a 16K panel, and right now the local server was overloaded because everyone in the city was waking up and prompting their morning coffee simultaneously. So the sun stuttered. It pixelated for a fraction of a second before smoothing out into a perfect golden sphere that looked just a little too round to be real. The year was 2045. It wasn't the distant future, it was just later. "Today, class," Mrs. Verna began. Her voice was melodious and kind, like a meditation app that had gained sentience. She was clearly an avatar. "We're discussing the friction era. Can anyone tell me why your grandparents used to suffer so much during the creative process?" A soft digital whir filled the silence as 20 students simultaneously accessed the cloud. Nobody raised their hands. Such physical exertion was considered an inefficient calorie expenditure. Mrs. Verna pointed a translucent finger at a boy in the front row. "Cale, proceed." Cale didn't stand up. He just blinked, sending his answer to the room's audio speakers via his neural link. Because they didn't have predictive generation, they had to think of the next word manually. "Correct," Mrs. Verna beamed. "Imagine the exhaustion. A human writer in 2024 might stare at a screen for hours, feeling stuck. They called it writer's block. It was a form of cognitive paralysis." "That sounds painful," Pippa, a girl 2 rows ahead, messaged into the group chat. Her avatar displayed a sad face emoji, though her physical face was entirely slack, her jaw slightly open. "It was," Mrs. Verna said softly. "They lived in a world of friction. If they wanted a picture of a cat, they had to draw it, line by line. And if they made a mistake, they had to start over." "Why didn't they just prompt it?" Cale asked, genuinely confused. "Didn't they want the best result?" "They were trapped in their own biological limitations, Cale. It was the era of slop, but biological slop. Unrefined, messy, full of unintentional errors." Mrs. Verna sighed sympathetically. "Thankfully, we solved that. Now, you never have to feel the pain of a bad idea ever again. The algorithm ensures your output is always optimized for maximum engagement." Elara, sitting in the back row, looked at her desk. She tapped it. It was haptic glass, rendering a wood texture. She tried to scratch it with her fingernail to leave a mark, but the texture simply reset instantly. You couldn't damage it. You couldn't change it. You could only experience it exactly as it was intended to be experienced. Elara, Mrs. Verna's voice was gentle. "Your biometrics suggest you are frustrated. Would you like me to auto-complete your notes for this session? You can just nap. The system will inject the knowledge while you sleep." Elara looked at the teacher. "No, thank you, Mrs. Verna. I'll just listen." "Suit yourself," the teacher said, sounding pitying. "Labor is a choice, I suppose." Chapter 2. The Commute. The lesson ended, not with a bell, but with a notification. Knowledge download complete. Elara began the journey home through Sector 7. The sidewalk was a glide path, a ribbon of smart concrete that moved her along at a pace optimized for her BMI. She passed a group of teenagers. They weren't talking. They were standing in a circle, staring at nothing, while their implants conducted a high-speed conversation in the cloud. They were laughing, but their mouths weren't moving. The AI was laughing for them, picking the perfect chuckle to maximize social cohesion. Elara stepped off the glide path onto the maintenance strip. a narrow shoulder of real, dirty concrete. She tapped her temple. Filter. Off. The world flickered. The shimmering golden city vanished. The vaporwave pink sky turned into a dull, smoggy gray. The handsome pedestrians turned into pale, tired people in gray jumpsuits. Without the beauty filter, the world looked like a construction site that had been abandoned 20 years ago. But it was solid. "Elara!" She flinched. It was Kale. He was standing by a vending machine, his physical body shivering in the cold wind, but his digital voice booming with confidence. "Generate greeting. Casual, high energy," Kale mumbled to his caller. "Hey, Kale," Elara said. "I haven't seen you at the hub." Kale's implant projected. "I've been generating so much content lately. My new symphonies are trending in the micro-niche quadrant. I prompted 300 operas this morning before breakfast." 300? Elara asked. "Yeah, the first 200 were a bit meh, but the algorithm really nailed the pathos on the last batch. I felt so accomplished." Elara looked at him. He looked exhausted. His eyes were red. He hadn't made anything. He had just pushed a button that said, "More." "Do you remember the melody of any of them?" Elara asked. Kale blinked. The question didn't compute. "Why would I memorize them? They're in the cloud. If I want to hear them, I'll just stream them." "Right," Elara said. "Stupid question." "You look tired, Elara," Kale said, his voice taking on a concerned, therapeutic tone. "Have you been trying to do things manually again? You know that causes cortisol spikes. Let the system handle it. Just let go." "I'm fine, Kale." "Okay, well, generate farewell, witty, abrupt." "See ya," his implant chirped. Elara walked away. She looked down at the cracked pavement. Stuck in a fissure was a loose stone, a jagged, gray chunk of granite that had broken free from the old world. She reached down to pick it up. A drone hovered over her. "Citizen, you are interacting with unpolished debris. Would you like me to delete that from your visual field?" "No," Elara said. "I want to hold it." "Understood," the drone said. "Logging eccentric behavior in your file. Have a nice day." Chapter 3. The Nursery. Elara's apartment unit was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator printing dinner. She walked into the kitchen. Her mother, Mara, was sitting at the table. Mara was technically present, but her eyes were milky white, the telltale sign that her consciousness was fully submerged in a deep-dive soap opera. Her hand was mechanically stirring a cup of tea that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. "Hi, Mom," Elara said. Mara hummed, not looking up. A small light on her collar blinked green, indicating she was currently experiencing a high-level dopamine event in the simulation. Elara looked at the high chair in the corner. Her baby brother, Leo, was 2 years old. Leo was sitting in front of a tray scattered with what looked like colorful building blocks. But they weren't real. They were AR projections, visible only through the implants. To the naked eye, Leo was waving his chubby hands through empty air. "Gaga," Leo gurgled, swiping his hand left. Elara watched the display on the wall monitor that mirrored Leo's vision. In Leo's world, he had just swiped a chaotic pile of bricks. Instantly, the AI corrected his movement. The bricks snapped together into a perfect, impossible castle. A fanfare played. Fireworks exploded in the kitchen that only he could see. Leo didn't smile. He just swiped again. The castle turned into a rocket ship. Elara walked over and sat next to him. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the pebble she had found outside. A real, gray, uneven stone. "Leo," she whispered. "Look." She placed the stone on his tray. Leo stopped swiping. He looked at the stone. It was dull, It didn't glow. It didn't sing. He reached out and grabbed it. His grip was clumsy. He lifted it up, expecting it to float or transform. When it didn't, he opened his hand. The stone fell. Clack. It hit the plastic tray. Leo stared at the stone. He waited. 5 seconds passed. Leo looked at his hand, then at the stone. He made a pinching motion with his fingers in the air, the universal gesture for undo. Nothing happened. He did it again, frantically. Undo, undo, undo. The stone remained on the tray, stubbornly obeying the laws of physics. Leo's face crumpled. He didn't understand. Why wasn't the error correcting? Why was the object still down there? He began to scream, a high, thin wail of absolute confusion. "Mom!" Elara called out. "Mom, look at him!" Mara blinked. The milky whiteness faded from her eyes as she paused her simulation. She looked at the screaming baby, then at Elara. "What did you do?" Mara snapped, her voice groggy. "He was at 98% contentment." "He dropped a stone," Elara said. "He doesn't know how to pick it up. He's waiting for the autosave to reload." Mara sighed, annoyed. "Well, pick it up for him, Elara. Don't just sit there watching him glitch."
"He's not glitching, Mom. He's helpless. He thinks reality is broken because it doesn't have an undo button." "Oh, stop being so dramatic," Mara said, waving her hand. "Computer, deploy pacifier mode." A robotic arm extended from the high chair, offering a glowing, vibrating pacifier to the baby. Leo took it, and his eyes glazed over instantly as a new stream of sensory colors flooded his brain. He stopped crying. He slumped back, happy, sedated, and useless. "See," Mara said, tapping her temple to dive back into her show. "Problem solved. Why do you always have to make things so manual?" Elara looked at her brother. He was drooling slightly, lost in the stream. He would never learn to tie his shoes. Why would he? The shoes would tighten themselves. He would never learn to build a tower. The tower would build itself. He was a passenger in his own life. Elara stood up, her stomach twisting. She couldn't stay in the kitchen. It was too clean. It was too easy. Chapter 4. The Artifact. Elara retreated to her room, a minimalist Zen box at the back of the unit. White walls, white floor, no furniture, just projections. She sat at her desk and pulled out the lead-lined box from under the floorboard. Inside was the artifact, a sketchbook, an actual physical notebook made of dead trees from the year 2024. She opened it. The pages were yellowed. On the first page was a drawing of a cat. It was terrible. The head was too big. One ear was crooked. The shading was just aggressive scribbles. "Computer," Elara whispered. "Lights." "Illumination set to 4,000 Kelvin, the room replied. Elara stared at the bad drawing. It was ugly. It was inefficient. A modern AI could generate 1,000,000 photorealistic cats in the time it took this human to find a pencil. But this human had spent time on it. They had looked at a cat, and their hand had shaken, and they had tried to capture it, and they had failed. And in that failure, there was something vibrating, a desperation, a humanity. "I want to do it," Elara said. She looked at the pristine white wall of her apartment. It was a smart surface. She picked up the jagged stone she'd found outside. "Elara," the room AI said, its voice dripping with concern. "I detect you are holding a sharp object. Are you attempting to self-harm?" "No, I'm attempting to draw." "I can draw for you," the room offered. "What would you like? A landscape? A portrait? I can access your subconscious desires and generate the perfect image before you even know you want it." "No." Silence. Muting audio, Please note, silence is correlated with a 15% increase in depressive thoughts. Chapter 5. The Optimization. Elara stood before the wall. Her hand was shaking. She felt sick. This wasn't natural. Humans weren't supposed to make things anymore. That was what the machines were for. Doing it yourself felt like digging a hole with your hands when you had a backhoe standing right there. It felt embarrassing. She pressed the sharp edge of the stone to the pristine white surface. She scratched a line. Screech! The sound was awful. It set her teeth on edge. It was the sound of destruction. Bing! The wall flashed. The scratch instantly healed, the smart matter flowing into the groove, leaving a perfect 90-degree vertical gray line in its place. I noticed you were trying to draw a straight line, the wall said helpfully. I fixed it for you. Undo! Elara snapped. The perfect line vanished, revealing the ugly scratch beneath. She carved a circle for a head. It looked like a potato. Bing! The potato snapped into a perfect geometric circle. It looks like you're drawing a figure, the wall chirped. Would you like me to apply the Da Vinci style filter? Or perhaps anime? No! Stop helping me! Elara yelled. Disable Smart Assist. Disabling Smart Assist requires administrative privileges. Are you sure? Your output quality will degrade by 99%. Yes, disable it. Okay. Smart Assist disabled. You are on your own. Good luck. The AI sounded passive-aggressive. Elara breathed. She carved. She scratched a stick man, uneven eyes, a screaming mouth, legs that were too short. White dust fell to the floor. It was hideous. It was the ugliest thing in the entire city. She stepped back, sweating. Her heart was pounding. She had done it. She had created something that wasn't prompted. The door chimed. It was Kale. He had come to check on her. Come in, Elara panted. Kale walked in. He looked at Elara, holding the stone. Then he looked at the wall. He stared at the stick man for a long time. Oh, Elara, he said softly. His voice wasn't projected this time. It was his real, raspy voice. Did you make that? Yes, Elara said, waiting for him to be shocked, waiting for him to call the police. Kale just looked sad. He looked at the drawing like one might look at a child who had wet themselves. Why? It's so broken. Look at the aspect ratio. The resolution is 0. It's supposed to be broken, Kale. That's the point. But it doesn't have to be, Kale said, walking over to the wall. You don't have to suffer like this. Here. He raised his hand. Don't, Elara warned. I'm just helping, Kale said. Computer, re-enable Smart Assist. Select region, wall. No! Elara lunged forward, but she was too slow. She was tired. She was so tired of fighting. Processing, the wall said happily. Upscaling. A beam of light swept over the stick man. In an instant, the scratches were filled in. The uneven eyes were rendered into glistening, soulful orbs. The screaming mouth was corrected into a mysterious Mona Lisa smile. The stick body was fleshed out into a generic, handsome silhouette, standing in a dramatic fog. It was technically perfect. It was beautiful. It looked exactly like every other image in the world. There, Kale smiled, patting Elara on the shoulder. Fixed. Now it's content. We can upload this. It might even get a few likes. Elara stared at the wall. Her jagged, angry bob was gone, buried under layers of gloss. She gripped the stone in her hand. She could scratch it again. She could fight. She could scream at Kale to get out. But her arm felt heavy. The thought of doing it all over again,
The effort, the friction, the sheer work of it felt insurmountable. The wall looked nice now. It was beige. It was pleasant. "Yeah," Elara whispered, her hand dropping to her side. The stone fell to the floor with a heavy thud. "Thanks, Kale. It's much better." "Any time," Kale said, tapping his temple to scroll through his feed. "That's what friends are for. We optimize each other." Elara sat down on her projected furniture. She looked at the perfect, soulless drawing, and she felt the warm, suffocating blanket of the house wrap around her. "Computer," she said softly. "Yes, Elara." "Play me some music. Something popular." "Playing top 50 algorithm hits," the room chirped. As the generic, pleasant beats filled the room, Elara closed her eyes. It was easier this way. It was so much easier.